Hello everyone, we are going to start with another lecture of performance management, and in this lecture we are going to deal with the concept of time series analysis. Now this is basically a concept which has been rarely asked in performance management paper. I think it just have been examined once or twice in the whole era of performance management from 2007 till 2024. But since regression has been recently examined, the chances of this topic coming in your paper has increased, right? So let's start with the time series analysis. Let's see what we can do here. So time series, like what we did in regression analysis, regression is basically a way to analyze or to forecast the cost of any company, right? Which has a fixed element and which has a variable element. Now, what is time series analysis? This is basically a method which is used to analyze the sales volume of company, right? Sales volume of company which has seasonal fluctuations in its business. So generally we do time series analysis calculation for that. For example, let's suppose you are talking to about a car repair service. So in car repair service, Saturday Sundays are always a busy period, because I mean in Pakistan Saturday Sunday is always a busy period for them, because it's a holiday, both are holidays, and people used to give their car for repairs on Saturdays and Sundays. While from Monday to Friday, since all are working days, people don't give their cars for repairing. So generally, the business from Monday to Friday is lower, but Saturday, Sunday both are busy period, right? Similarly, if you are taking the example of hospital, probably then on Monday and Saturday usually there is a peak season, because on Sunday I mean hospital is generally off. On majority of the doctors don't have their clinics on Sunday in Pakistan. So what when you can find rush of patient is on Monday, because people who are sick on Sunday will come on Monday, and Monday patients will be there as well. And Saturdays, because we know that doctors will not come on Sunday, so let's go on Saturday. So Saturday and Monday both are generally busy periods for a hospital, right? So similarly there can be a lot of seasonal variation in different businesses, different type of variations. Like let's suppose if you take the example of a telephone company, so generally mostly number of calls are made in between landline communication. That's generally made between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., because that's the office hours. But after 5 p.m. till probably 8 or 9 or 10 p.m., there will be less number of calls because people are at home, right? And after 10 p.m., there are chances of calling will again will reduce, right? So that's how we can divide the whole time period in a particular day. So we are actually talking about the same thing, right? So any business with seasonal variation are generally we can deal it here, right? So let's start with a basic idea. Let's suppose that today is December, right? Let's suppose today is the end of December, which is basically quarter 4 of 2024, right? And let's suppose I'm telling you that sales in quarter 4 of 2024, these are the average sales, but let's call it sales right now. Sales in quarter 4 of 2024 were around, let's suppose $50,000, right? $50,000, and this is the average sales. Average sales means that there is no seasonal variation in that, right? For example, there is a Christmas season, so we are not 50,000 is excluding any Christmas sales. This is the average sales. What do you mean by that? I will discuss it later. Okay, so 50,000 is the average sales, and what I'm saying that there is average growth in sales is around $2,000 per month, right? I'm using the word average every time, and that represents something I will tell you later. So average growth in sales is around $2,000 per month, not per month, sorry, per quarter, right? So if I ask you what you are expecting, that what will be the average sales in quarter 1 of 2025, what will be the average sales? Average sales will be 50,000, which is sales till December, I mean fourth quarter, plus 2000 unit sales which we are expecting in the next quarter, because there is an average growth of 2000 units per quarter. Every quarter sales increase by $2,000. So we are expecting around $52,000 sales in the first quarter of 2025. Let me ask you same question. Let's suppose if I say what will be the average sales in quarter 2 of 2025, what you will answer? You will say, okay, fine, 50,000 is the sales till the fourth quarter. And if we are standing right now, which is the end of quarter 4 of 2024, 2025 involves 2 quarters, because quarter 1 and quarter 2, in every quarter sales revenue increased by 2000. So it will be around 2000 times 2, right? And that will be around 4000, not 4000, sorry, 4000 plus 50,000, 54,000, right? And if I keep continuing like this, like for example, for what will be quarter 3, in quarter 3 you will say, okay, fine, this will be around 50,000 plus there will be one time growth more, so 2000 times 3, right? It will be around 56,000 and so on, right? You will increase the number of quarters and your sales will continue to increase by 1000 units per quarter, right? But the problem with in this situation, what the problem is with this is that it doesn't include any seasonal variation. This is the average sales. Now what do you mean by average sale? Let me try to explain it by using a diagram, right? Try to understand this diagram. Let's suppose there is a graph, right? Let's suppose that this is sales graph, right? So if I ask you what is the is sale fluctuating, you will say yes, the sales is fluctuating, right? But if I ask you what is the trend, do you think trend is increasing or do you think trend is decreasing? So let me plot a line of best fit like this, average trend line. This trend line is actually showing that the sales is continuously increasing, right? But there are fluctuations, right? For example, if I talk about this point, this is showing the average sales without any seasonal variation, right? If I talk about this point, at this particular point my actual sales is higher than the average sales. This is something which we call positive seasonal variation, right? At this point my actual sales is lower than the average sales. This is called the negative seasonal variation. At this point my actual sales is quite high as compared with my average sales. This is a positive seasonal variation. This is a positive seasonal variation. This is a negative seasonal variation. So average sales is actually representing the trend of the average sales. What is the overall trend, right? Similarly, if I make the same graph like this, let's suppose if I make the graph like this, you will say, okay, fine, I mean I'm drawing it very differently, but obviously what you will say that sales are fluctuating but overall trend shows that sales are decreasing, right? So this is basically this line, this straight line is actually representing the average sales, which is without any seasonal variation. So we have not considered any seasonal variation. So if you want to have the actual sales, how you can get the actual sales? If you are at this point, let me try to choose a different color. If you are at this point, point A, and you want to move to actual sales, what you need to do, you need to add this seasonal variation in it. If you are at point B, you need to deduct the seasonal variation from it, right? You need to add seasonal variation, you need to reduce the seasonal variation. So that's basically how we can come up with the actual sales, right? And let's suppose we have data till here, right? And let's suppose the data is still here. My screen there's no screen left, but let's suppose we want to calculate sales of this particular time period. So how can we calculate it? We will say, okay, fine, this is the growth line, this is the growth. So let's assume that same pattern will continue in future. Sales will be around at this point, right? So this is this figure which is here. This point is actually representing what? This point is actually representing this part, that we are assuming the same growth, we are assuming the same level of growth. What will be the sales on the basis of same average growth? So that will be around at this point. Now remember, this is not the actual sales, this is the average sales. what you need to do to calculate the actual sales, you need to get the seasonal variation, right? Sorry, not like this. You need to get the seasonal variation. So if this period has a positive seasonal variation, like let's suppose the last quarter of the month of the year, because that is closer to the Christmas season, that is the year end, so generally we see a lot of sales going on at the end of the year. And obviously we get promotion at the end of the year, so next year probably we have more money in our account, so January, February, March can also be treated as a higher sales, right? Let's suppose. So at this point of time, if this is January, if this is the first quarter, sales are going to increase. If it's third quarter, sales may be lower as compared with the average, right? So what is the next step? You need to calculate the average sales, sorry, to need to calculate the actual sales. This is the average sales. If you want to calculate the actual sales, you need to consider this 52,000, 54,000, 56,000, and you need to either increase or decrease, plus or minus seasonal variation in it, you will get the actual sales, right? So let's suppose if there is a positive seasonal variation, we will add, let's suppose it's 3,000, and it can be a negative seasonal variation, let's suppose 4,000. So we'll just adjust accordingly and we'll get the actual sales, right? So this is basically the phenomena how we use the regression and how we do the time series analysis. So what is the first step? There are two steps. There are three values actually which we will calculate. The first value is this figure, right? This is what? This is actually called the last average sales. This is the first figure which we have to calculate. The second figure which we have to calculate, we don't know from where it came, is average growth. We don't know how you got this figure. We need to understand this. So this is the second figure which we have to calculate, which we will calculate in the next video. And then seasonal variation, how we can calculate the average seasonal variation, how we get to know that what will be the seasonal variation. So this is the third figure which we will calculate in the next video. But this is basically how we need to work. So if I want to make it quite simple, right, there are two equations. The first equation or the first step is this one. This is the first step. So what is the first step? First step is to calculate the average sales of required period. And what is average sales of required period? That is last average sales. Like this is the last average sales plus what? Plus growth, right? And growth into we are going to write growth, right? We will see later how to do this. And then what is the second step? Second step is the calculation of actual sales, right? So how we can calculate the actual sales? Actual sales can be calculated by using average, this figure, average sales of required period plus or minus average seasonal variation, right? And just try to understand, try to note one thing, that at every step we are writing average. We are mentioning the average time, average growth, average seasonal variation, right? This is also the average growth, right? So that's basically how we need to do. So in the next video we will calculate these three figures. The first figure is last average sales, the second figure is growth, and the third figure is average seasonal variation. And obviously there are two models which we can use. This is the first model which we are doing is the additive model. Then we will do the multiplicative model. All right, so see you in the next video. Take care. Bye bye.